So we are jumping directly into our model. I'm using AdventureWorks, so the most should know it. It's a basic model of Microsoft. I just show the data model. So we have sales, we have a date table, we have customers, we have regions, and we have products. And in our different approaches today, first we want to have a look at the date table because we want to bin something based on dates. And second, we want to have a look in the customers because we want to see what kind of revenue produces the top percent of our customers, the top 2% of our customer, and so on. This will be the part with the Lorentz curve. So, but jump right into our data and have a look at bins. So if you want to say, okay, I want to know how many days are in my data having a revenue over a certain amount. So in this case, I want to see how many days I have over 40K or something like this, or with exactly 40K. And the problem is, if you have a look in your basic data, you can't bin this just by bringing it together because the granularity is much higher on this level. So if we look into our sales, so we see the data is not summarized for each day. So we need to summarize it to make to say, okay, we have X days with a revenue higher than 10K or something. We have X days with a revenue of exactly 30K. So to do this, we need some DAX. So here you see if I just bring in the revenue based on how many orders we had by revenue, it's really, really depending on which product they bought. And we know now on each day there are maybe 1,000 different customers, 1,000 different products, and we have to combine them to make an assumption or to make a rule how this can look for each single day. So I will delete this. It makes this a little bit bigger. And I have done this here in my dynamic binning. And we basically need two things. We need a series, so classical parameter series, to say, okay, we want to set it on a series. If it is 1,000, bring it on 1,000 and so on. And then we need our measure. And this measure, I will enlarge it a little bit, is practical, quite simple, because it does the same what I've described. It summarizes the data based on the granularity of the date. So our first virtual table summarizes the data based on the date. So we are summarizing the data for each day, and we say, okay, we want to have the total value for each day. Okay, this is our first virtual table, and I guess Arthur knows what is coming because we talk about virtual tables a lot in the next step. And now we have this virtual table, and the next step is we have to say, okay, if there is a certain value, we want to count this. And if we just sum it up, we can't bring this together because there are a lot of values between, for example, 1,000 and 2,000. And therefore we say, okay, I want to round it to a specific value so that I can say, okay, this specific value matches one of the parameters in my table. And therefore can say, okay, I round this down or round to the thousands. You can also round down or round up. It's depending on your use case. I round just and say, okay, please round it to the next thousands. And now I know if the bin, so if this parameter meets exactly this requirement, I filter a table. So I'm filtering now my virtual table, and this virtual table then get counted. And because we're using this binning in this axis, we get this the value for each bin. And if I'm filtering, you can also see it's dynamic, so it's dynamically filterable from outside of this visual. This is also quite performant, and this model is exactly the same model, except that I have multiplied my data. So we are now talking about 7,858,000 and something. And here I have a binning. Okay, the binning is a little bit larger because the values are larger, but it's exactly the same. And if I click on something, you can see, okay, the performance of this binning is quite good. So actually, I would say this is something you really can use in also in
Yes.
quite big models.